subject is the most important subject I know of to controlling human behavior. If you ever asked yourself, why did I try to make a change and try and not really succeed? You're going to understand the answer by the end of this. And more importantly, if you want to create lasting change, the tool that we're going to talk about today is the tool that creates lasting change. And if it's used improperly, it also gets you stuck. And the term or the tool we're talking about is the power of identity. Now, what is identity? Identity is just the culmination of the beliefs you have about who you are. But those beliefs control how you think, how you feel, what you perceive, how you interact with people, what you're willing to do, not willing to do. The single most important element, if I want to understand what's driving that person, is to understand how they define themselves. Because, hear me now, the most powerful force in the human personality is the need to stay consistent with how we define ourselves. So anything you attach the words I am to over and over again, consistency with your language, with your emotion, and with an emotional intensity, you'll eventually become it because it becomes a belief, and a belief is self-fulfilling. When you're done with this, you'll start to question some of your old identities, some of the limitations those might bring. So often people say, I'm not that kind of person. What kind of person? And when did you define yourself? A year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years, 30 years ago? Most people, it was a long time ago. And maybe at the end of this conversation, it's time to update your sense of identity. Maybe it's time to expand it. Maybe it's time to take some of the labels off that might limit you. Maybe it's time to look at some that you want to define yourself by as you move for the next 5 or 10 years of your life of growth and expansion. But I think it's important to understand how powerful this piece is. Here's what I want you to consider. Whatever people do, they're doing the best they can with the resources they have in that moment. Are there smart people who do stupid things? My bet is you're a smart person. You've probably done stupid things. I sure have. Are there, people that are not seemingly high intelligence who do some really bright things? Of course they do. Is it possible for a really mean person you consider mean to be really nice? Yeah, when they're in a really nice state, they will be. Is it possible for a really nice person to be mean? Of course. Everybody's done it in some time. But the difference is your identity. So our identity is more powerful than even the truth. Your beliefs about people shape your relationships with them. And then your beliefs, of course, about yourself are the most powerful of all. But I want you to know you can also expand your identity, not by telling yourself, I'm great, but by doing something. It's like self-esteem. I hear so many parents talk about, I want my kids to have so much self-esteem. And I think it's one of the biggest mistakes, and I'm not the only one who believes this. Dr. Was it Beck from Stanford? Carolyn Dweck. I remember reading her books, and she's talking about how we've raised our children and told them they're great all the time and they're wonderful and they're perfect. And what it really does is mess them up. And the research shows it, because then they go in the real world and they aren't perfect. They aren't all the things their parents told them, they've been told their whole life. And now they're scared to try something where they're not who they thought they were, because their identity was larger than who they were, as opposed to rewarding your child for effort. Well, that's amazing effort. Boy, if you keep doing that, you'll achieve whatever you want. That's a true statement. They can grow and expand out of that. So I just want you to understand, there are situations where people get in a certain emotional state. They're scared, they're angry, they're afraid, they're whatever, and they behave a certain way. But if they do that several times, they might say, that's the kind of person I am. And once you do, it's self-fulfilling. So this is an area that deserves taking the time to think, really looking at all the consequences of identity, and also understanding it's the controlling force in your life. So it's controlling decision-making. It's controlling your perceptions of yourself. It's controlling perceptions of others. And here's one more thing it controls: how far you grow or fall.